Right guys, some more Pajero today, in particular the lights. The Pajero body has headlight lenses and a pair of spots at the front that can take LEDs, very nice. But the back is a bit of a disaster. The moulding is nice enough, but the lights are just stickers. And we can't just make the front light up and call it done, that's just not how we do things. Now, this is the body from the XB version, so it comes with LEDs fitted to the front and a CL-01 to source the current, all of which we will be using. Since just having static lights is a bit boring, we'll be using the EXT connector on the CL-01 to control it. For the rear lights we'll need to make some lenses. There's a few approaches to this, but I decided to use some 8mm transparent acrylic. Right, first job, strip out the body. At the very least, take out all the bits from the back, as the red dust from the plastic gets everywhere. Better yet, take off everything that's removable. Then it's time to attack it with a Dremel. I roughly cut out the lights, then with a set of miniature files trimmed it until only the surrounds remained. It took ages, but so far so good. Here's one of the lenses. The slot is a perfect fit for the 8mm acrylic, so I just cut out a bit so it would fit in with a bit of an overhang all the way round, drew around the light surround, attacked it with a file until it was a good fit, and gave it a bit of a wet sand to smooth out the file marks. Simple enough, but it did take about 45 minutes per lens. The split indicator reverse lenses took a bit more doing. They were made in two parts, roughly cut to size, then a layer of aluminium foil was glued in between with some 5-minute epoxy. When it's all hardened, like the others, I filed it to shape. To give the lenses some colour, I used Tamiya clear paints. The leftmost lens is after a single coat of red, the next at 4 coats, which is about right. Then I painted the sides with 2 coats of flat silver, and lastly a couple of coats of black to stop the light bleeding through. When they're all fully dry, I popped them under a drill press and drilled a 3mm hole for each LED, making sure they're all drilled to the same depth. When they're all fitted and carefully aligned, checked and double checked for fit, I got out the 5-minute epoxy. Pop the lens in and carefully go around the edge with the epoxy. We want it to only slightly flow around the lens and not all the way through to the outside. I'm only doing a pair at a time to keep things manageable, then leaving the body nose down to keep the epoxy on the inside. The middle pair and the bottom pair were done in just the same way. When the epoxy is hardened, it's time to paint the rear faces of the lenses, avoiding the holes. I could have painted the lens backs and then drilled, but the drill could have left some paint behind in the hole. Doing it last means as long as the brush isn't overloaded, they should end up perfect. And with them glued to the body, there's less to have to hold on to. So that's a couple of coats of silver and a couple of coats of black. Now to stick the LEDs in. I would normally use Yoo-Hoo Pour for this, as it dries clear and remains slightly rubbery, which would allow the LEDs to be replaced if they ever need it. But I didn't have any Yoo-Hoo, so used some GWS kit glue, which has very similar properties. I put them all in with the anodes to the right to make them easier to wire up later. To stop the light bleeding out the back of the LEDs, they're also given a couple of coats of silver and black. First bit of wiring done. The CL-01 is designed to drive 2 series LEDs per channel. So the red LEDs are a pair per side and the reverse LEDs are a single pair. All are wired up to some strip board attached to the spare wheel mount, so if the main wiring gets tugged it won't rip the LEDs out of the lenses. Attached to that is the main cable that goes to the front of the body. It's just glued on with hot glue, being careful there's still enough clearance to remove the windows. Now the CL-01 goes in, just a bit of servo tape on the back, the ribbon is split and connectors crimped on to connect the LEDs to the CL-01. Refitted the front lights and connected them up. Because the EXT connector isn't the most robust, I've made this little 16-way block. It's just a standard IDC with some ABS glued to it so we can get the wires in. On the chassis we've fitted a box for the electronics. The two mounting posts for the mechanical speed control resistor will cut short and tap to M3. The box then just sits on the chassis and is held in with two screws. The CC-01's EXT connector is now wired to the IDC, and a super bright LED has been fitted to the roof with a little acrylic lens to fit the antenna hole. The radio now also has a buffer and pass-through attached, so we can monitor the servo pulse widths without bothering the radio. The cable form for the chassis is complete. Running from the front of the box, it's attached to the chassis with some nylon P-clips. Inside the box under the wiring is the transistor current sync board. This will let us control the CC-01 from a microprocessor, which lives up in the lid. It's an Atmel 80MEGA168 with 16K of flash program space and 1K of SRAM, plenty for the job it's got to do. The current program takes up less than 2K of the flash. The lid lines up with some connectors in the box and is held in with 4 screws. It won't be waterproof, but it should put up with the odd splash and some mud. The battery connector on the ESC has been changed to power poles, as that's what I use on my scale trucks, and has the power to the lights piggybacked. The lights have their own power switch on the box lid. Putting it together is fairly straightforward. The connector plugs into the body and the body goes on like normal. Turn on the ESC, then turn on the light controller, and it's alive! It powers up with all the lights off. The truck acts like any non-lit model. Toggle the aux channel and the roof light turns on, showing you can change the lighting mode. A quick steer to the right goes to the next, and a flick to the left the previous. On the front are the headlights that come on in mode 2 and the spots in mode 3. The rear is far more interesting though. In mode 1 the brake and reverse lights work. In mode 2 and 3 the tail light comes on too, the brake lights being full brightness and the tail lights being reduced, done by controlling the current a transistor connected to the EXT pin on the CC-01 can sync. Hopefully we'll have something on rcmojo.com with all the technical goodies for those who like to play with electron management. Might as well have a look at it in the wild. I'll just put some bits showing the lights here. If you want to see the whole run, I'll be posting that soon, or if not, it'll be next week. You can see the reverse lights come on when going backwards, and the brakes when the throttle is neutral, which for the ESC is the drag brakes. The brake lights are a little glitchy, there needs to be some smoothing. Perhaps something to detect if the vehicle is in motion too, so we can turn the brake lights off if it's been stopped for a while. Need to have a think about that. The Tamiya provided front LEDs are pretty good enough to drive by. The tail lights are a bit bright, that's just a case of swapping 2 resistors on the transistor board. I think next for the lighting system we need a roof rack with 4 more super bright white LEDs, should really light things up. The other thing is I need to get a light on my camera rig so I can throw a little light on the truck, as it really is just a disembodied set of lights most of the time. And then there's the green LED on the receiver and the flashing red one on the ESC, need to cover them up. As always, there's so much to do, the bane of the RC builder, the never-ending project. Thanks for watching. If you're not already subscribed and you don't want to miss the next video, just hit that red subscribe button and we'll be in your sub box on a fairly regular basis. And of course, if you like this video, there's always that like button, always nice to get some feedback. Oh, and don't forget the website rcmojo.com and our Twitter @rc_mojo. Thanks guys.